Coaching has been part of my life for a long time. I have loved sports, gosh, since I was a kid. Grew up in South Florida, and coaches had such impact on my life that even at an early age I knew I wanted to coach. And so graduated from college, coached for a good while, coached in high school, loved being a high school coach. Had a chance to be on Coach Bowden's staff, legendary coach at Florida State for a bunch of years. And then weird things happened to us along the way. I left coaching. People said I would be good at some other things in sport, but it wasn't coaching. And even though folks said I was doing well, I guess deemed successful, I had very little contentment. I was missing what I loved to do because I couldn't tell you why I loved coaching. I just knew I did. And at 40 years of age, I actually lost a job. I lost a big job with, I was working for Disney Sports. It was a contract. And during that time, I started coaching at a little local high school out where I live in Claremont. So at 40 years of age, I'm doing what I'm doing at 22. Except now I am just really beginning to understand how much I love doing it. Didn't understand why I left it. I did the strangest thing at 40. I went back to school. I went back to Florida State for 7 years while I was coaching high school football here in Central Florida and worked on my doctorate degree, really looking at the role and the impact of the coach in the American culture today. I was really trying to figure out me. I had a great major professor back at Florida State. She says, you need to look at this. You need to look at this degree. You need to get a doctorate degree. And I said, I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. I'm a football coach. She goes, no, you need to ask that question. And that's what I did. For 7 years, I really studied. And what we found out that coaches that coach in 3 dimensions, body, mind, spirit, and have a strategy in each, they produce the highest producing athlete and have a sense of contentment right where they are. And that's what I was looking for. So while I'm finishing up this degree, about to get it done, UCF contacts me. And I live out in Claremont. And somebody gave them their name. I don't even remember who it was, but they said, we got a lot of kids that are interested in coaching. You're about the only person we know that's got a doctorate degree in coaching. And would you be interested in writing a degree? So we had a little grant from the state of Florida. Our branch campus out in Claremont, South Lake campus, we started with 9 kids. We wrote a degree. It was called Sport and Fitness. It was quite a few years ago. And my focus was on coaching. And so I've been with the university ever since, almost 2 decades now. And it has been a wonderful journey. We're now one of 9 institutions across the country that are completely accredited through a very tough accreditation procedure to have a coaching education track within our school. And we're just very successful. And so here I am, I'm older now, and I love what I do. So this university has given me a great platform. I love teaching the next generation of coaches. We really take a look at the impact of the coach in the American culture today. The coach has such influence. And I travel quite a bit, so I work with coaches all around the world and helping them discover their why, because I couldn't discover mine until later. So that's what I do. So I travel quite a bit, and I'm still a coach. I'm still a high school coach. My second son is the head coach at Edgewater High School. He's took over a program, was 0-10 3 years ago, and it's been neat to watch. They become a perennial power, but more than just winning on the field, watching the difference they're making in kids' lives and parents' lives. And he applies all the stuff that we teach here at this university. But this university has given me just the most wonderful platform. I call it my calling in life. I've gone from a job to a career to a calling. So I love what Krista McAuliffe said, the astronaut, the teacher that died in the Challenger accident years ago. She coined the phrase, she says, I touch the future, I teach. I've borrowed that phrase. I said, I touch the future, I coach. So we get to work with that next generation of coaches here at UCF that are going to go out and truly make a difference in the world, just through the world of sport. Yeah, you know, we're now under the Division of Kinesiology, and it's great. When we first started the program, people can't figure out where coaching education is going to be because a coach has to know so much. They've got to know applied psychology. They've got to be able to fundraise. They've got to be able to develop facilities. They got to motivate. And then they got to learn the sport itself, and then there's a high science behind it. So coaching is rooted in physical education, though very few coaches are actually physical educators anymore. So being in kinesiology, we just moved here from the College of Education just a little over a year ago, and it's a great place because in our school now we have those that are athletic trainers, physical therapists. So a lot of the folks that are involved in sport are now around us. We've always struggled with finding our home at a university simply because we cross so many departments. But this department in college has been wonderful because it's just wonderful people here who truly do understand the impact of athletics in our culture today and what coaches can do for the good if they really become quality coaches. So we're at home, good place to be. You know, it's funny, I have to go back, I don't even know. I have to go back and call HR because, you know, I tell coaches all the time, I say, what's the difference between a job, a career, and a calling? A job is something you do to meet demands in your life, right? And we got demands, I've got bills to pay, that's a job. You know what a career is? It just means you did a job for a long time, that's all. But a calling is who you are, is what you do that impacts others. And so I don't know, I think I've been here 15, 16 years, I think. I'm not sure because it's an extension. I'm in coaching education, and this is the platform. The university gives me a platform to be able to express myself in what I do, both my teaching and my professional life. Research reflects today that the greatest coaches are those who can create an environment of joy. Joy is a motivator. The research the empirical research is unbelievable. Whatever you do, anything with joy, you will do it at its very best. But you can't create joy. You know, I can't look at you right now and go, be joyful. I can't say be angry or be happy. Something has to happen. The setting has to be set by which joy comes out of it. So we work with coaches on bringing back the joy of playing the game. So we know now coaches that know the game, what we call first dimension, know the basis of the game, but can create a sense of joy by the strategies they do. The kids will play at the highest level, but more importantly, they're learning things about life that are good, that will go way beyond the game. And in a lot of places we've lost joy. We've taken sport and we've made it work. It's like going to work. There's only a few athletes that actually make a living playing sport, but 58 million kids are playing sport. So things that they learn in sport, the attribution effect, are huge. We say the coaches today are the true ministers. In other words, they're engaging. Ministry is defining as engaging in the needs of others. It's not a religious term. And so coaches are the true ministers. And so we know when they can bring a sense of joy, people learn that, boy, if they can apply that to other aspects of their life. The results of joy, whatever you do, if joy is your motivator, you will do it at its very best. Obviously, you've got to develop your skill. But whatever your skill set is, if joy is the emotion or the motivator, you will do it at its very best. So we're bringing that back in. That's why we say sport is to be played. Play is defined as joy and wonderment. We say, what position do you play? This Friday night, who do you play? When that umpire gets behind that softball game or baseball game, he or she looks at the pitcher and says, play ball. And that has been pushed out of sport in about the last 2 decades. So we're adamant that we bring that back in our curriculum. And the thing I enjoy the most is watching our undergraduates grasp this role of what a great coach is, get into the field, and then I get to go watch them. I was speaking at a Nike Coach of the Year clinic just this past weekend, and 5 of our former students are now, this was a football clinic, are 5 head coaches in the area, and they all came up and they have such sense of joy. And you can tell they have found their why. They have found their calling in life. That brings me, I know it's an age thing, but that brings me the greatest joy to see the next generation get it. You know, our curriculum, because we're accredited, the NCAA, the National High School Federation, the U.S. Olympic Committee, about 15 years ago, got together and said, we got to figure this coaching thing out. Because coaching has been a sub-discipline. It hasn't been a discipline unto itself. People did stuff and then they coached. That's rapidly changing in our culture today with club sport and high school sports and college sports. So the profession now has to be able to do. So we have a lot of things that have to be taught. So the science classes, man, the kinesiology folks just do a great job. We've got one of my colleagues, Dr. Biddle, teaches the sport administration pieces because they've got to raise money, deal with facility. I teach the methodology courses, so I'm the guy that's actually, what does it look like to be a coach? So our coaching theory class, looking at what a coach is responsible for. Our coaching methodology class, how to coach. We use a principle called 3-dimensional coaching that we developed here, body, mind, spirit. How to deal with ethics. We teach an ethics class. Ethics is just the expression of one's morals. You know, there is no law that says you have to play sport. So kids come to you with discretionary. They're choosing to play sport, but coaches have to make decisions. Who plays, who doesn't play, who cuts, who am I going to cut, who's not going to be a part of that. And a lot of these are ethics. I'm making a decision based on this, what I think is right or wrong. That's the morals. Ethics is how you express it. And so we teach an ethics class because coaches really have to know what they believe in order to then hold kids responsible to be disciplined to do that, which means they set parameters to be able to work within those guidelines, which means they got to tell some people they're not playing or they're not on this team or they're going to go at a lesser level. It's pretty powerful. So those are the main classes I teach, all the coaching methodology classes in our curriculum. Oh gosh, tell me something interesting about, I'm still coaching. I'm 60-something years old. I got to tell you this story. So I've been coaching 40-something years. And even though I've gone through working in higher education for a long time, I still coach. I still love coaching. It's still part of who I am. So I've helped out a lot of local high schools, mainly football's been my main sport. Well, my second son, just a few years ago, got his first head job. He'd been an assistant coach, has worked his way up, and he just became a head at the oldest school in Orlando. The second, well, you got Orlando Edgewater and Orlando Boone. They're the two oldest schools, and Orlando Jones, which was the historical black school. So you have the three schools, Jones, Boone, and Edgewater. And he just got the job at Edgewater, and they'd gone through some really tough times. Hadn't won a game, and anyways, he took over a program, and he calls his mom, my wife, and he says, "Mom, before I take the job, I want my dad to serve as my offensive coordinator." Now that sounds good, right? So for the last 3 years, I've been working for my son. So, you know, I work for my son. He calls me as offensive coordinator. I haven't called a play in 3 years. An offensive coordinator is supposed to call plays. I got to tell you this one story. This year we made it all the way to the state finals. So in 3 years, we're playing St. Thomas Aquinas, who ended up the #1 team in the nation. That's that mythical national championship. They just demolished everybody. And we're playing them tough. State finals, big giant crowd. And we're down 5, we get the ball, we move down the field, clock's about to run out. We have the ball on the 27-yard line, 27 yards to go. One last play. 3 years, my son's never asked me for play. He just wants me to read coverages and fronts, stuff I do up in the box. And guess what he asked me on the headset? "Hey Dad, what you got? What play you got?" There is no play for something for 27 yards with no timeout. It was hilarious. The conversation during the critical part of the game was not assistant coach to head coach. It was dad to son. I said, "Son, don't you ever ask me what to call on a 3rd and 27 with no time left." So, but he and I have laughed. So here I am older and I still have the joy of coaching. And the excitement is seeing that next generation do it really well. Yes, winning on the scoreboard, that's awesome. We need to be able to always promote trying to win on the scoreboard, but you learn more about these kids' lives and pouring into them and making a difference in their lives. Great coaches today will say, "I know I've done my job in 20 years. 20 years. A mother asked the coach at the end of the year, "How are the boys going to be next year?" Talking about a football team. And the coach said, "I don't know, ask me in 20 years. If I did my job, they'll be greater husbands and greater fathers just by how we coached them while we had them here." I love that. That's the role and the impact of the coach in the American culture today, if it's done well. And that's what we teach here at UCF. No, I just want to say thank you to this university, because so often when you're in education, you know, there's an old saying that when you can't do something, you teach, you know, that old saying. And that's always bothered me, because what teaching has done is given me a platform, given me a voice. Yes, use my educational research, my doctoral stuff and all that, but more importantly, when we can really impact, I don't want this university to ever lose. You know, universities have to do research, and boy, we lean on the research hard, but we don't want to ever lose the impact that we're helping kids enter into a career field, and if we can help them find their calling. We don't ever need to forget that. While we do research, and we need to get research, we need to go after the grants, but let's don't lose the idea that we're affecting kids as they enter their career. We're still a teaching university as well as a research university. And I'm a teacher. That's what I am. I'm a coach.